Hello, this is voice actor Wally Wingert and the Riddler, Edward Nygma. Hello. And Adam West, the 1966 Batman with superhero stuff. You should know. You should know this too, Riddler, you foul fiend. I know everything, you cowled clod. And you, Wingert. Yeah, you're right. I know nothing. Sorry. All right, but you got to be sure to listen because I'm going to be the guest, and it'll be fun and long.
All right, everybody, welcome to Superhero Stuff You Should Know. This is Andrew, and I'm once again joined by...
the man who knows too much about Batman. This is Benoit.
And this week, we have our second part of the Wally Wingert interview. He is the top, I say the top anyway, top Riddler voice actor that there is. If you have played the Arkham series, you know him, you've heard him, you've collected his trophies at least a little bit. Maybe you didn't like finding the trophies, but you liked his voice more than likely. I mean, really great voice. And he's done a bunch of other stuff other than that. We have our first episode out. Please check that out. This is part 2 of that. Anything else before we get to it, Ben?
If you guys want to know what he thinks of the Paul Dano casting as Riddler, keep listening.
All right, that's it. Check it out. Here we go.
And then in terms of other roles, I have to ask, I'm a huge fan of the Big Finish productions. So I was wondering how it was like working with them for the Dark Shadow story, the Darkest Shadow. Are they, because they're primarily in the UK, right?
They are, but Jim Pearson is the point man for all that over here, so we do a lot of the sessions over here, and then it's all edited and sweetened over there. But, Jim and I had known each other for a long time, and sometimes when you're too close to people, you don't really think about, oh, man, I got to... you sit down with a buddy and you go, yeah, Ruben, I gotta figure out I gotta hire an artist to do some stuff. And, not realizing, well, this is my friend Ruben, but, oh yeah, he's one of the best storyboard animation artists in town. Why don't I just ask him, So right. He never, he was doing these radio theater productions. And it just really kind of never occurred to him that, oh yeah, Wally's a voice actor. He can do a bunch of these characters. Let's bring him in. So, eventually I said, Jim, hello, hi. I'd love to do one of these. So it's like, oh yeah, of course. So he brought me in and I got to sit, this is great, as a lifelong Dark Shadows fan. I got to sit there next to David Selby, Quentin Collins, as Quentin Collins in the radio play. Looking at my 7-year-old self going, I would have never ever thought I was sitting next to Quentin Collins and actually uttering the words Quentin Collins, because he and I are doing a scene. It's like a 1.5-page scene, way too short. And we got it on the first take, and Jim's like, okay, moving on. I'm like, no, I want to do it again. I want to stay here and act with David Selby all day. But I said, well, maybe just another one. Okay, we'll take another one. So we did do it twice, but just because, and to be honest, I know that you guys have a lot of heroes growing up, but when you're sitting next to them and you're now considered by them as an equal, which, kind of was, God bless it, was what happened with Adam and I later, eventually on in life, when, we were both on Family Guy and we were both in stuff. I was now no longer the Adam West fan and he was the icon. He considered me, oh, you're one of my fellow actors. Okay, that's cool. And that meant everything to me. I have a framed screenshot of the credits at the end of Family Guy that says Adam West, Wally Wingert, because they all went in alphabetical order. And that's awesome. So all of a sudden, here's David Selby looking at me as, well, he's one of the other voice actors. We're doing a scene. So when I literally got to say, Quentin Collins, you're a fool. I'm telling you, a chill went up my spine and I almost wept. Because it's just one of those things where, and you don't really do that outwardly because you don't want to out yourself as an uber dork. But to be able to do that just internally, I became, it was just like, wow, this is full circle. This is everything I always had hoped as a kid that it would turn out to be like. And I've had many, many instances like that throughout my life. So I've been really incredibly blessed. So yeah, but I would have chosen to, I don't know, maybe do that scene another 75 times.
Of course.
But just yeah, it was great, and those radio shows are really good. Big Finish, they do a great job.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic stories. Some of the stuff that they've redone, whether it's Doctor Who or Sherlock Holmes and stuff, are some of my favorites that are, I think, better than the ones that are being currently produced.
Right.
So it's great stuff to listen to on my commutes.
Yeah, absolutely. And the sound design on it is really great, and just really, really good stuff. But
yep.
Yeah, I just never ever thought, the when I was a kid watching Dark Shadows, that guy with the sideburns that turned into the werewolf, I never ever thought that I'd be sitting next to him in a studio doing a scene with him. I never ever thought I'd be in Palm Springs having breakfast with Adam West when I was a kid. Never ever thought I'd be driving around in my Gran Torino with Paul Michael Glazer, as Starsky. It just, life is charming, it's dreams do come true. You just got to kind of let them.
Of course.
It is cool to meet your heroes.
Sometimes.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I've been really blessed in that meeting the majority of my heroes have been good experiences, but some people tell me stories that it has not been a good experience. Have you met any of heroes of yours?
Oh, man. I'd love to meet, I know you're probably not the hugest fan of the Dark Knight trilogy, but I personally would really love to meet Nolan. And maybe, I don't know if he's nice or not, but I think it'd be cool to meet him. Also, Jim Carrey.
It's interesting that you mentioned the director and not the actual actor behind the character. When I was a kid, I never wanted to meet a director. It just is never on my radar. I was all about Barnabas Collins and the people who actually,
Part of that is because I grew up mainly in the 90s, and I think that Spielberg's presence was so strong at that time. And just the idea of the director and the only vision of the director was Spielberg. So, I don't know, for some reason I latched on to that. And
also, we're film school kids, so we pay attention a lot to the directors, writers, people who might not be as well known on that side. For me, I briefly met Mark Hamill.
Oh,
nice.
In college, because his daughter was in my class, and they were shooting. They weren't shooting. It was a screening of Psycho. I got there late. And it's one of the few seats that are open are at the end of the row. I sit down, I look around because that's what you normally do just to see who else is around. And I stop and I'm like, that's Mark Hamill. And this is before he came back to Star Wars.
Yeah.
So this is when most people didn't know what he looked like anymore. They just associated him with the Return of the Jedi, and that's what Mark Hamill looked like.
Yeah.
And my roommate next to me is like, nah, that's not him. I'm like, no, I swear to God, that's him. And I overheard his voice.
Nah.
And I'm like, that's gotta be him. And Psycho screens, and I've already seen the movie, and I'm not even paying attention to it because A, I've already seen it, and B, I'm just wondering if that's Mark Hamill a few seats away from me. And then finally,
what does Mark Hamill think of this movie?
Yes.
Well, Mark Hamill was probably enjoying Psycho before you showed up and drilled a hole into his head with your eyes.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So he.
I was enjoying this movie before that kid sat down and started staring at me.
Does Mark Hamill have an Anthony Perkins impression?
Yeah, right.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, he probably does.
He didn't do one, but he was wondering if there were, because we talked a little bit afterwards, because I finally worked up the courage to ask him a question of if that was actually him. And of course, he said yes. And he brought up he had wondered who else would have been up for the role of Norman Bates, because in his mind, it was always going to be Anthony Perkins.
Yeah.
So he's a little curious about that, and then other people started recognizing him, because I think once people saw oh, there's that one kid talking to that guy. Oh, that's Mark Hamill, and then they all rushed over because I started it. And so he shook somebody's hand, and he's like, "This is my bionic hand. I could crush you."
That sounds like Mark.
That's awesome.
It's an amazing experience. Would love to reunite with him on this podcast at some point.
Yeah, well,
it was amazing.
I know that his wife entertains offers. I'm not sure if he's doing interviews or whatever, but I think she has some sort of email address or something where all the offers and the ideas come through her. But I'm not sure he's doing much with everything going on, but yeah, maybe he's bored. Who knows? I don't know. He's a great guy though. He's just really terrific.
Yeah, he seems like it.
I love how much he's so into the nerd world, because
Oh,
not
yeah.
every actor that's in a famous nerd role really loves what they've done with their life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's really into monsters and he's really into
Yeah.
Batman. But if you go to his house, there's no Luke Skywalker anywhere there. The only Luke Skywalker stuff that I saw when I was there were some pictures on a table that he had to sign and send off. Other than that, it's all monsters, it's all pop culture, it's all Batman. He's got some Joker stuff. There's just no Luke Skywalker. It's really weird. But yeah. I mean,
too
you
close
remember,
to home, I guess.
Yeah, the people get into this business because they like it, not because they don't like it. You're not going to get into, being a Olympic coach if you don't like athletics.
Right.
You're not going to be a comic book fan and go, I think I'll be an Olympic coach. No, you get into it because that's where your interests lie. And a lot of people who, from Paul Dano all the way to, Mark Hamill to beyond, people, whether or not, I mean, they release the indication that they're nerds in various levels. Some, just like Mark, just go all out and say, yeah, I'm a nerd, whatever, I admit it. And other people are secret nerds, but really play it kind of cool and don't really let it out that they're nerds. But trust me, everybody who's a hero in the movies today had a hero when they were kids in the movies. And I said to Paul Michael Glaser, he said, I don't really get, Starsky and Hutch was a big show when I was a kid. I loved it. And I, got to know Paul, and he says, I don't know, people at the Starsky and Hutch, it was really, kind of annoying to have people follow me around everywhere and blah, blah, blah. Well, you're an actor. Maybe if you didn't like that, you should have been a plumber, do something else. It always flummoxes me. It always flummoxes me when people are actors and they go, oh man, people just want to talk to me and have me sign stuff all the time and take my picture and talk to me. Did you not know that this was part of the deal when you got into acting? Did you not maybe think that being a stay-at-home mom or maybe a plumber or a ditch digger would have been maybe a better life for you than people that wouldn't want to talk to you? It's kind of part of the job. As the old saying goes, you knew the job was dangerous when you took it.
Seinfeld has some sort of he said something on comedians in cars getting coffee.
Who did?
He said Seinfeld. He said something like, I didn't get into this business for this not to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
He totally accepts his level of fame and all that kind of stuff, and I thought that was a really honest answer,
But I finally got it out of Paul. I said, Paul, come on. You had to have had something that you loved as a kid. What was it? And he thinks for a second, and he goes in his Boston accent, he goes, I like Westerns. He was a big cowboy fan. He loved Westerns,
Right.
And I said, did you not ever have a moment to where you met someone, like, oh my gosh, and your heart pounding, like, I can't believe I'm actually meeting this person. He said there was one time that happened. He was at a party during the days of Starsky and Hutch. And he was at a Hollywood party, and he heard a voice behind him, and his blood ran cold, because he recognized it as the voice of Cary Grant. And he had always wanted to meet Cary Grant. And he's like, oh my gosh, I'm at the same party with Cary Grant. And that was his kind of starstruck moment. So once I kind of wrapped his head around that, he's like, yeah, okay, I kind of get it. I kind of get it now. So it's interesting. And Mark, had said at one point, Hamill had said, I don't really get Star Wars. I don't get the appeal. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, because, he didn't grow up on that kind of stuff. And I said, well, you read, the Homer's, the Iliad and the Odyssey, right? He's like, yeah, we had to read it in school. I'm like, well, this is our, Iliad and the Odyssey. You're our Ulysses. Luke Skywalker is our mythology. He's like, oh, okay, I kind of get that. So once you kind of wrap their head around where they're at in the scheme of importance and legend and Adam West, God bless him, always understood that. He never did not understand that. He always just knew that that's his place in life, and he just kind of embraced it.
It's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You also voiced King Tut in Batman vs. Two-Face. I was wondering if you could share with us.
Wonderful King Tut. Yes, Victor Buono, one of my all-time favorite actors, who was in the very first Wild Wild West episode, playing a 400-pound Chinese man.
Well, that's some good casting. Victor Buono is a 400-pound Chinese man. It was hilarious. But I've always loved Victor Buono, especially. I remember being in junior high. We were listening to comedy albums. We had a great school because in English class or some kind of class, they ran a comedy album. And they ran Victor Buono's comedy album where he did stand-up comedy, I think like one time. But it was an album and we listened to it. And I just, the whole class, was tickled and was giggling because he said a bad word. But he says,
I'm on the beach reading, and I have children coming by me, staring at me, and they go over to their mothers and say, look, Mom, a man with boobies.
And they said boobies in school. We thought that was, he either said boobies or titties, a man with titties. So it was really funny.
It's amazing.
So yeah, he was great. But how that happened was, if you remember a scene where they all have a jailbreak in the first Return of the Cape Crusaders movie,
right?
There's all the villains jailbreaking, and James Tucker, we're doing ADR, and James says, "All right, we're gonna cover some of these voices here, and we're looking at who all's there." And like, okay, can you do a false face? Oh, okay, sure. They all had to say huzzah or something like that in unison. So I'm doing Malachi Throne. Yes. Well, Batman, false face. He was one of my favorite characters. Huzzah, huzzah, huzzah. Okay, that's good. Who else do you want to do? Oh, I can do King Tut. Okay, do King Tut. Huzzah, huzzah. So it just, without an audition or anything, when King Tut figured into and Professor McElroy figured into the second movie, my agent called and says, yeah, okay, you'll be doing Riddler and King Tut. I'm like, what? And I'm thinking he just had maybe one or two lines, but I didn't know that he would figure into it quite that prominently until I got the script to study. And I said, wow, he's in here a lot. And he has a lot of scenes, that I got as McElroy. So I had to go back in to the DVDs and, see what his personality was like as McElroy versus as King Tut. And there's that great scene where they keep bonking him on the head.
Yes.
And he keeps changing back and forth between the two. And I thought, oh, this is really great. And then when I found out that I remember I'm on the balcony of my hotel in Palm Springs reading the script, and I'm thinking, boy, the job to have in this movie would be Two-Face, because this is a great character. I wonder who they're getting for Two-Face. Thinking it was going to be some voice actor friend of mine, and he said, oh, it's William Shatner. I'm like, what? I get to have scenes. Now I didn't act with these guys in person, but we're in the movie together. I get to have scenes with Shatner and Adam West. Oh my gosh, my nerd meter just went off the charts. But McElroy was, oh yes, dear boys, don't fight. No, there's a better way to settle your issues than violence. Please don't. I'm King Tut, you heretic. So definite change in his voice, which was a lot of fun to go back and forth. But again, the great Victor Buono, who started that whole thing.
Yeah. Definitely.
He'd show up on the show as Professor McElroy,
Oh dear. Oh please, Batman, tell me it didn't happen again. Did I get conked on the head? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
So he was great.
Yeah. We revisited the movies on the podcast a little earlier this year, and we love it as a love letter to the 66, and we kind of see it as like a nice little, forms a little trilogy with the 66 movie.
Right.
Being part one.
Yeah.
So it was good that they did that. In addition to the Arkham games and the animated movies, I was looking on your IMDb to find out, because I was surprised by this because I didn't remember hearing you in this, but you did some bit roles in Batman: The Enemy Within from Telltale.
Yes, the Telltale, but that was Jack Fletcher directed that, I believe, and I was some henchman or something that died horribly or something that was really
okay.
But yeah, it's cool to be a part of so many franchises that you grew up with as a kid. And I actually have a document here. It is. I've documented all this stuff, so I'm getting very dry, of all this stuff that I got to be a part of. These big franchises, anything from Lord of the Rings, Transformers, Garfield, Care Bears, Star Trek, Star Wars, Power Rangers, G.I. Joe, Popeye, DC Comics, Astro Boy, Batman, Andy Kaufman, Marvel, Kiss, American Idol, Tonight Show, Disney beat. So all of these well-known franchises, and I never take any of this stuff for granted. You just never do. And I like to write this stuff down because you just got to keep in touch with your blessings in life and be constantly aware of that, and just be constantly thankful for it. And that's why I keep this franchise list. If I ever I'm down about something, I'm like, oh man, this is then all of a sudden I pull out of it and go, you know what? It's been a pretty darn good, charmed life. I never in a million years as a kid living in South Dakota thought this would ever, be like this. So this is pretty cool. So yeah, I'm pretty blessed to have been involved with this number of franchises, and being only the 7th full-time Tonight Show announcer in the history of that legendary show. That's phenomenal. And to have been the only announcer to do that job strictly as a voiceover guy, never being on camera. That was another special badge of honor.
I saw that show twice in person, and both times, for some reason, it was Russell Brand as the main guest.
Oh.
It was just such a weird timing. I knew I worked at Melrose Mac in Burbank at the time as a bench technician, and one of the kids there that was worked in the front, his name was, we called him Little Joe, but his dad worked on the show. That's how I was able to bring my whole family there when they visited me from Atlanta one time. I can't remember his last name though, but you probably knew his dad.
Now, was that the last 4 years that Jay had the show?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Yeah. Because I remember introducing Russell Brand a couple times on the show, so yeah, it must have been.
Yeah, I was there, but I asked a coworker before we started this episode tonight about what Little Joe's last name was, but I can't remember it. But yeah, that's
Cartwright.
That's pretty cool. Maybe.
No, that's a Bonanza joke.
Okay, yeah.
Little Joe Cartwright. All right. Sorry, I gotta kind of frame my references to the appropriate age group. All right.
Oh man.
Showing my age. All right.
Gotcha.
Sorry about that.
Let's see. So back to the Riddler stuff, because we love doing deep dives into characters, especially with the actors. But you've mostly been the Riddler in the ensemble pieces. But if, say, they're like, hey, we want to do an animated movie where your Riddler's the main villain, what are some of your favorite Riddler stories, or what Riddler story would you love to do?
Golly, I don't know what I could come up with that could beat what they've already done. I mean, the whole thing. Well, the Riddler in the original game, in the first Arkham game, you never saw him.
Right.
You just heard him in those recordings.
Right. That's right.
And Colette Sunderman was the director of those, and she was so good at bringing out the multiple layers of his insanity. Those recordings that people accessed and listened to were the real reason that the Riddler showed up in the other games, because people were like, oh my gosh, this guy sounds twisted. What does he look like? Can he be in the next game? And it was the fans who said, we want to have him involved in the next game. So, and there was something about if you chop a baby's arms off or whatever, he's doing this horrible thing, and the lady's like, Edward, that's terrible. How can you say that? Easy. He's not my baby. It's like, oh, okay. All right. This ain't no Frank Gorshin. This is twisted. So, Riddler story.
I guess any ones that you liked in the past in comics growing up, or just any other exploration. Yeah, any incarnation, I guess.
I don't know. They've done pretty much everything you could possibly do. I mean, what else would you do with what hasn't been done with him yet? I mean, they did Origins, so you kind of got his Arkham Origins. You kind of got the feeling of how Eddie Nash, was it Nash that became Nigma?
Nashton, yes.
Nashton, yeah, Eddie Nashton became So you heard him as Eddie Nashton, and you could kind of hear his turn into the darker thing. So they've kind of explored all of that already with how that works. But it's such a brilliant character. But he's not he's not a fighter. He's not like Bane or Killer Croc that can beat Batman up. So he's only got his mental acuity. But once Batman sees them in their same room together. I give up. Don't
Right,
hit me.
yeah.
Don't hit me. Now he's not such a big man anymore. But I love the fact that they did make him kind of a game show host.
That's nice. I like that direction. That's cool.
Yeah, and he's got all these traps, and it's like, well, here's another thing that you have to overcome in our next incarnation of this game that we're going to play. It's all a game to him.
Ben and I have talked about this in previous episodes of the podcast, but I was wondering. Sorry, Ben, to go off a little bit off the script here, but but I was wondering, in your mind, what is the Riddler's main motive? You're an actor yourself, and what's my motivation? Like that's a big thing, I assume, and what's Edward Nygma Nashton's main motive in your mind?
To get the respect of that he feels he deserves for his superior intellect that he never seems to get.
Right.
And as long as Batman exists, who's smarter than him, he's never going to get that. So until he can get that speed bump level down, he will never get the respect that he feels he deserves as a superior intellect. And I believe that's the thing that drives him, and that's why he hates Batman so much, because he knows he's just a little bit smart. Here's a weird thing, just kind of a side note. Excuse me. I was doing some Power Ranger stuff here recently because I voiced, I think in about 6 or 7 episodes back in the late 90s, a character named the Blue Psycho Ranger. The Psycho Rangers are the evil versions. They're the evil Kirk, They're the
and we're
versions
evil.
Yeah. And they have cool costumes, and they were taken from the basic synapses that lurk in the deep in the brains of the good Power Rangers, but they were made to be evil. So anytime that the good Power Rangers would try and fight them, the Power Rangers, the bad Power Rangers, the Psycho Rangers could always anticipate their every move because they knew exactly what they were going to do, because they were actually made from them. So these characters really, even though they were on just for a short amount of time, have resonated quite well with the Power Ranger populace. So last year they got a couple of the other Power Ranger, Psycho Ranger guys together, and we did a couple conventions and stuff, and it was pretty cool. So somebody came up and said, "Would you sign the picture to Dylan? I'm smarter than you." I'm like, "Oh, you want my Riddler quote on a thing?" "Oh no, you said that as the Power Ranger, as Psycho Ranger." I'm like, "I did?"
Really?
Sure enough, they were when they first introduced the Psycho Rangers. The regular Power Rangers are like, "Well, who are you? We're the Psycho Rangers. We're faster than you, better than you." And my character goes, "Smarter than you." And this is 20 years before the Riddler. So
wow.
And then the Riddler came out and said, "Because I'm smarter than you."
That's awesome.
I'm like, wow, that's kind of cool that I've had 2 characters that have actually said that. So I wasn't really aware of that until last year when the Power Ranger stuff started happening again. But whatever. But yeah, Riddler just doesn't get the respect that he wants to be considered the smartest guy in the world. Now, here's the thing that we always do, and to bring this to real world stuff, which I swore I wasn't going to do earlier to take us out of our fantasy play. But, they're always talking about who's the richest man in the world, who's the richest man in the world, the richest man in the world, who's the richest man in the world. You know what? I don't really care. Who's the smartest person in the world? That's what I want to know. Who's got that? Who's the Einstein of our generation? Who's going to be the person to really, the deep thinker who's going to take us into the next generation and beyond with the deep thoughts? That's what I want to know. I don't care about the richest person because, chances are with inflation and everything, the richest person today was nowhere near the richest person back in the 30s or 40s based on the level of what the dollar was worth. They always say, the highest grossing movie of all time. Well, no, not really. The highest grossing movie of all time is probably Wizard of Oz because it's been around for 80 years and it cost 12 cents to get into the theater back then, not $18. So if you adjust for inflation, whatever. So that's what I want to know is who the smartest person is. But yeah, he just doesn't get the accolades for being a superior intellect, I don't think.
Einstein's only an amateur compared to that's how he views Einstein, probably.
Don't worry, Riddler. You're no Einstein. Who, Al? Yes, poor little Al.
Overrated.
Yeah, overrated Al.
That's awesome.
But you know, Einstein was and that's kind of what maybe how I'd like to see the Riddler explored a little bit is his intellect is so advanced that just some of the more mundane things that you have to use your brain for between day to day, you just don't know how to do that. Like Albert Einstein would stop policemen on the street all the time and go, "Hello, officer. I'm Albert Einstein. Yes, Dr. Einstein." He says, "Could you tell me where do I live?" He'd forget where he lived. You know,
wow, I didn't know that.
Did not know that.
Well, you know, he wore the same stuff every day.
Yeah.
Same stuff every day. A sweater, a shirt, and slacks. And the same stuff. He just did not want to waste an nth of mental ability thinking, what am I going to wear today? Because it was a waste of time. It was a waste of mental energy.
I've heard of that. He would learn how to boil an egg while making soup or something, like do several things at once.
Yeah.
Things like that. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's what I would like to see. I would like to have that explored more of the Riddler, to where like he sometimes forgets where he lives. He forgets his mom's name, but boy, he's, you know, because he's too busy, you know, thinking about the universe and how to make, you know, money out of, you know, holding the city for ransom. So,
how does the Riddler do his laundry?
Yeah, right.
Maybe that's why he's always in the red suit. I mean, the green suit.
Yeah, well, he probably,
what else to wear.
The answer is he probably doesn't. Whoo, boy, that guy stinks. The guy probably sits in that little control center of his, and he's probably never. It's like Dib in the Florpus movie.
Oh yeah,
you know, where he's just sitting there and he smells bad and he's all bloated. He's which was great. Because he comes out, oh, you smell terrible. You know, go clean up.
That's exactly that character.
Yeah. But that's what I would like to see, is the Riddler just, you know, really looking disheveled and like somebody not being able to stand very close to him because he smells so bad, because, you know, his brain is just working overtime and the body just kind of suffers as a result of it, and hygiene be damned, you know?
Right. Exactly. Now, I was looking through this just to verify this, but I believe your version of the Riddler is the only adaptation of the origin from the comics about him cheating at a Puzzlewood school. Like, I don't think that's in any of the other versions of it. So obviously, he has a history of cheating and tries to cheat, but he also gets pissed at Batman for cheating throughout the series, or what he thinks is
Right.
cheating. So,
well, you always hate in others what you hate about yourself secretly. You know,
Right.
It's a psychiatric phenomenon called projecting.
yeah.
You always project onto others or from others what you hate about yourself secretly. So he probably knew he cheated, and when Batman cheated, it reminds him of that part about himself that he doesn't like, because maybe at that point he just wasn't smart enough to really figure it out. He had to cheat. You know?
Yeah. Maybe he's always haunted by the fact that he did that.
Well, it shows to him his weakness. I should have been able to figure that out and do it legitimately because I'm smart, but I cheated, and I have always hated that part about myself. So yeah, whatever.
Yep.
I love the character. I think, like Pym, he's got a huge character arc that I don't think has been explored in any previous incarnation that they could probably go on with. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Paul Dano.
Oh man,
You predicted our next question.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Oh, does
talk
with him
about
because,
segue, man.
Yeah. Well, do I have a script in front of me or something?
You are the Riddler. Yeah.
Yes.
amazing.
Wow.
Well, what are your
The
thoughts
question
on Paul
you should
Dano
ask
as
yourself
the
is
Riddler?
the question you should ask yourself is, how did you know I was going to say that? I'll never tell.
My superior intellect.
Yeah.
So,
My
yeah,
superior
what are your
intellect
thoughts of Paul
deduced-
Dano?
Exactly. I could anticipate your next question. That's how superior my intellect is compared to your small pea brains. Whatever.
It's chess, not checkers.
It's hard to improvise those lines when you're just kind of vamping, because they're so well written and well thought out. It's one of those rare instances when you're in a session and you come up on a line and you see a bunch of words and you're like, what the hell am I saying? What does this mean? What is that word? And the director, Amanda Wyatt, says, I don't know. So we stop the session and we go on Mr. Google and we look up what the word means. And it's like, it's okay. That's a well-written script when the actor and the director go, I have no idea what I'm saying. But you want to know what you're saying because you want to be able to use the word in the proper context.
Yeah.
So it's pretty great when you have to actually stop the session. Those scripts, those Arkham scripts are just off the charts. Wonderful.
Oh, yeah. So you're a fan of the casting of Dano as the Riddler?
Well, I like him as an actor. I think he's good. So, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah. I'm just glad the Riddler's getting some kind of love. I mean, they cast a pretty good guy on the Gotham series, I think.
Yeah, Corey Michael Smith.
Yeah, and somebody had said, I've never seen that show, but somebody had said, oh yeah, we're watching Gotham tonight, and they're like, oh my gosh, he's doing Wally. And I'm like, okay. So I looked at a few clips, and I'm like, I don't really see it.
They might have been one where he does the Riddle Factory, which is the game show.
Oh,
so he might channel it a little bit there. Off the top of my head, that's the only explanation I have for that. Because when you first mentioned that, I was like, I don't really see the connection. I see more of the connection to like Jim Carrey, but not really to the one in the Arkham games. But I'm like, maybe it was that one. Maybe that was the episode they were seeing. I don't know. Well. Last question here. What is, obviously you've played several characters in your career that are comic related, whether it's in Batman or obviously the Riddler and the Marvel Universe. Are there any other comic characters you would love to take a crack at?
Well, not having Kevin Conroy's voice, I probably wouldn't get any of the square-jawed characters. I get cast mostly as the smarty pants guys. The guys who are, the intellectual guys, the scientists, Pym, those kind of guys. And I, even in video games and stuff, in certain different franchises of video games, I get cast as, the smart scientist, because I can take, I have the ability to take really complex words and phrases and say them in such a way to where they're clear and understandable, and it sounds like they're just coming off the top of my head, when I have really no idea what I'm saying. but I can say the words precisely, and it sounds, I guess my read is very kind of scientific and precise, unlike having a Hulk voice or a Bane voice or one of those characters. So I'll never have the vocal depth of being able to get one of those characters, but Captain America or whatever. But hey, you know what, I'll take what I can get. I had a really good old friend in the old days when reading comics had to be done, in the privacy of your own home. God forbid you wear a Captain America t-shirt to school. You got to do that.
Right.
But I had a really good friend named John Horning in Aberdeen, South Dakota. And John and I were both comic book fans. Now, he was a wrestler. He was in a lightweight class, but he was solid muscle. He was a small guy, but he was solid muscle. So nobody gave him a hard time about reading comics. But he and I bonded. We'd, when you're doing that kind of stuff, you hang out and you sleep over at your buddy's house, and you turn on Outer Limits on cable, and you order a pizza, and the pizza shows up, and you're there, and you're eating pizza, and you're drinking pop, and they call it pop in the Midwest, and you got your comic books surrounding you, you got your action figures, all that great stuff. And
is that the greatest night of all time?
Yeah, pretty close. Pretty darn close, yeah. I remember when I was sleeping over at my friend Ken Stoltz's house, funny story, and he just got something new called cable TV.
Ooh.
Wow, you have a cable and you can get all these perfect, no antenna, you don't have to worry about the reception being bad. We'd watch Outer Limits, which I always loved as a kid, Outer Limits on WGN, KWGN in Denver, which is one of the cable channels. So he and I are up, it's like 11 o'clock at night, and of course we're in 6th grade, so it's pretty late for us. Hey, let's get a pizza. Okay, so we ordered this pizza called Lou's Pizza, which was one of the first ever places to deliver. It was a mom and pop place. So we're watching, Outer Limits with the mutant with the big buggy eyes with the goggles on. He takes the goggles off. He's got the big buggy eyes. Da 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 da. All of a sudden, oh man, it's the pizza guy. Like, go get the pizza. No, you go get it. We thought the pizza guy was gonna have the goggles and the big buggy eyes. We thought it was really fun, but we would scare ourselves silly. But John and I always had these comic book things, and I was more of a DC guy. He was more of a Marvel guy, and then he moved to Wilmer, Minnesota, but we stayed in touch. and we would draw superhero characters, and we loved Star Trek and loved Laurel and Hardy and all this different stuff. So John, then you grow up and you get older, and he got married and had a bunch of kids, and what year did Batman Begins come out?
2005.
Okay, he was at a viewing of Batman Begins with his wife, and he said, "I just don't feel very well." And she said, "Well, do you want to go home?" She's like, "Well, I think we better call an ambulance. I really don't feel well." So they called an ambulance, and I guess he passed away. He had that thing John Ritter had, where you have a little hole in your heart and you just kind of bleed out.
Oh man!
And he at a very kind of young age, he wasn't old at all, just had that, and he passed away. So when I got the role as Pym on Earth's Mightiest Heroes, I just kind of threw my head toward the heavens and said, "John, I'm an Avenger!" Can you believe it?
I'm sure he would have loved that.
That's great, man.
And it's like, I can't believe it. I'm an Avenger. And, he and I used to get chastised for drawing comic book characters all the time. We would, but, he and I were right. Endgame is the highest grossing film of all time, except Wizard of Oz. But,
right, yes.
But, it's like, hey, billions and billions of dollars. I guess a couple of little comic book nerds in Aberdeen, South Dakota. We knew back then.
Nerds have made great strides over the years.
Yes. Geek is chic.
Yeah, it's true. I brought Marvel Fleer cards. So these Fleer cards were really big in the 90s. Well, big sorta, I guess. But the 90s, even then, like it hadn't taken off, like especially as it is now. And the next day, like I brought them one day, and then showed a couple friends, and then the next day, this other dude was like, "Did you bring like superhero cards to school?" And I was like, "No, of course not."
Yeah,
I like totally lied about it.
Yeah. Well, back in the day, you couldn't find any merch. There was no merch. So you had to either make your own or look for something that could. I remember in Famous Monsters magazine, they were selling iron-ons. There was Spider-Man, Hulk, Captain America, and I have a picture of me back in the early 70s, 72, 73, where my mom had ironed on a Captain America iron-on onto my shirt. And I never wanted to wash it because I knew that the iron-on would eventually start to fade and come off. But wasn't anywhere near what they have today, where you could just go to, Walmart, and there's about 4 or 5 different superhero shirts every week. There's a new one.
Right.
But you had that, and you just kind of wore the crap out of it. I remember had my mom buy plain white T-shirts, and my mom was into something called embroidery paint, where it's like embroidery, but it's paint.
Okay.
Where you get these tubes of paint, and you puncture the end, and you squeeze the tube, and there's a little paint that comes out. But you can draw on fabric with the fabric paint, and then it dries, and then you can wash it, and it's fine. So I would have all sorts of white T-shirts, and I would pencil on the design because I was a cartoonist. And she would go over it with the fabric paints. I'd tell her what colors and whatever. And I had a great Spider-Man shirt. I still have a picture of the Spider-Man shirt that I made that had his face on it, and very John Romita-ish, and with some spider webs and Spider-Man lettering underneath. But I made Laurel and Hardy shirts, King Kong, Chevy Chase. I wish I had all those shirts left still, but they all got thrown away. But it was all childhood artwork on cloth. It was pretty great.
I did the same thing with the Jim Lee Cyclops. I drew that whole Cyclops, like, I know a lot of people don't like that weren't part of the 90s generation, but like the whole, like, the yellow like band across his chest. I drew that on a white T-shirt for the X-Men movie that was coming out in 2000 because I was such a huge X-Men fan.
And there was no merch. You couldn't just buy stuff. Yeah,
not as much as now. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it was boy, times have really changed. Well, back in the old days, there was a company called Mego that would make the 8-inch action figures that I loved as a kid. And I liked them because they had cloth costumes. They weren't painted plastic. You actually remove the costume and put them in a different suit of clothes or whatever. And Mego in the magazine expose, multiple issues of the Mego toy company, which was fascinating, by the way. Mego wanted to get some of the Marvel characters, license some of the Marvel characters to do action figures. And this is what marketing was back then. So Mego is calling Marvel Comics. Bring. Hello, Marvel Comics. Hi, could I speak with your marketing department, please? Yeah, what do you need? Is this the marketing department? Yeah. So basically the receptionist was also the marketing person, was also and they're like, oh, we'd like to license Spider-Man and Captain Marvel or Captain America for action figures. Oh, okay. Send over the papers and we'll sign them. There was just it's not the monolithic
corporate
bureaucracy that it is today. It was just like one gal going, yeah, okay. She just answered the phone and was like, yeah, I'm in marketing. Okay, sure. She probably had like 4 or 5 different things that she was doing at Marvel at the time. But yeah, it's nowhere near what it is today. It's, merch is everything now. But back then you kind of had to get creative. Like, the Batman, which brings us back to my original Batman costume when I was 5 years old with my dad's army cap. You kind of just gotta, the necessity is the mother of invention, like, well, I need to have a Batman costume and I don't have one and I need to invent one. I just need to get one somehow. So anyway.
Gotcha.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's pretty fun. So, but you guys had it nice growing up in the time you did, because a lot of that stuff had already been, the kinks had already been worked out. So I'm happy to have blazed the trail for you guys. Actually.
Thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, happy to do it. And it was really cool because, I'd done this in Sioux Falls, my hometown. I went back last year for the SuperCon, and I did the Godfather of Cosplay speech and showed all the pictures and was talking about, oh yeah, I was doing this long before, anybody else. And it wasn't a badge of honor. There was no contest where you were awarded prizes. You got beat up. If you showed your face not on Halloween in some sort of other costume, you'd get derided and oftentimes beat up. So anyway, but I'm happy to do that. And some kid actually came up after the speech and shook my hand and said, thank you. And I'm like, oh, you're welcome. And I just kind of laughed it off like, yeah, that's kind of funny. But maybe the kid was really sincere, that maybe he realized that, no, guys like you, making your own costumes really had something to do with how this whole thing kind of, the genesis of this whole thing kind of, taking over later. Now cosplay is everything, but the thing is, there were no girls into it when I was doing it. That was the tough part. I mean, I had to pull teeth to get my my ex-wife to be Jason's mom in a Halloween haunted house exhibit. I said, come on, honey, just get in the box and we'll put your head on the plate and put some blood around your neck and you look like a severed head, and I'll be Jason with the pillowcase on my head with the one eye cut out, and and then you come to life and you say, kill him, Jason, kill him for mommy, kill him. And then I, to bring out the machete and chase the people out of the haunted house. She's like, oh, I don't want to do this. But luckily she loved horror movies enough to the point where she was kind of cool with it. But it was really hard to get females, let alone attractive females, involved in that kind of stuff. And now
different times. Now
great
all
the strides.
Yep, great strides. Once again, gentlemen, you're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Your service is appreciated.
Yeah. No, now women are they're professional cosplayers now. They have their Instagram accounts and, hey, this is my new costume I'm working on, and it's 2 Band-Aids and a cork basically is the costume. And that's all there is to it. But I'm not complaining.
Right.
But it's you never had that kind of stuff. There was a funny story about one of the early Comic Cons, San Diego Comic Cons, where it was about 100 guys and 1 girl, and the girl was somebody's sister.
Oh man,
it was all those times have changed.
Yes. Well, thank you for not only coming on this podcast, but also paving the way for those things.
Absolutely welcome.
And all that.
He said half in jest.
So while I did introduce myself as the man who knows too much about Batman, you certainly have me beat when it comes to Batman 66, and we have only tackled the animated films. We haven't tackled the series yet, but we would love to have you back to discuss the series even further.
Yeah, when you do that, let me know. I can talk about that show all day.
Awesome.
Kind of like I did just now for the past 2 hours we've been talking.
Yes. So we may be splitting this into 2 episodes.
You know what? I wish I had a nickel for every time I was told that after we finished a podcast. You know, hey, that was a great interview. I'm gonna probably split this. I wish I really had a nickel for every time I was told that. I'd probably have a couple bucks by now. But
we'll send you a couple.
Yeah, thank you.
Crap load of nickels.
It's just funny that they're like, yeah, we're probably gonna split this because How long is your normal interview?
We're normally an hour and the last one we did was about an hour and a half anyway, so this is only a little over.
All right.
But I was cool. Like, you know what, we wanted to know as much as we could on all the things that we asked anyway. So I was like, there's no way that I'm gonna cut you off on anything.
Oh well. Maybe for my own good, you should. Maybe for my own good and the good of the listener, maybe you should have cut me off. Oh well, you can edit. That's what's great about digital is you can always
for sure
cut out all the random crap that you don't need.
Yeah. Before we finish it out, Ben, I have one final question, and this might be still under NDA, but I wanted to ask: have you done any sort of work for the Power Rangers Battle for the Grid
I have
game?
Not. I have not.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. Just wondering.
No, I didn't even know that was really happening at the Power Ranger conventions that I attended. I didn't hear any buzz about that at all, so I'm not exactly sure.
It's a fighting game like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, but
neat.
all Power Ranger stuff, and it is pretty good, man. It's surprisingly, a lot of the games in the past haven't been too great, but this one's pretty good, and they are delving. Well, Psycho Rangers are from the show, but they're also delving into the popular comic book series as well. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of characters that have come out just from the comic series, so it's cool to see that. And I was just wondering. That's pretty much it.
Are the Psycho Rangers in the game?
I'd love for them to be. I didn't grow up with Power Rangers in space, but I've actually been going back to watch that on Netflix, and I think that is a pretty good incarnation. I was part of the original American series, Mighty Morphin, but I am a fan of in space now, and Psycho Rangers are cool, and I would personally love to see them in the game. I think it'd be really cool.
Well, the thing about the Psycho Rangers are their costumes just look so cool.
Yeah, exactly.
They look kind of spiny and black leather, and I love those things. So.
Yeah, I think that's one of the more fun designs, and they do show up in the comics as well. The comics have free range to use all of it. It seems like even the Japanese stuff. So.
Oh yeah.
So, maybe hopefully in the future there's a season 3 DLC coming out for Battle for the Grid. So, I don't know. I guess we'll see.
I would love. I'm ready. I can still do the voice. I was doing it in Orlando for people and doing videos, and it was a good time. So if they bring them back, I'm there.
This has been great. We'd love to have you on again.
Yeah.
And let us know if there's anything you want to bring up in the next one. Anything you want to plug or anything like that. Where can people find you on social media?
Let's see. My website, first of all, is wallyontheweb.com. You can email me through the website. All kinds of tasty stuff on there. Wally's Week. You get to see what it is like to live this life from week to week, which hasn't been all that interesting in the past couple of months, but hey, there's some fun stuff. Wally.Wingert and at Wally Wingert for the socials. I don't have a Facebook page anymore. I just got tired of it. But yeah, Twitter, Instagram, it's all good. And keep in touch. I love talking to people. So
nice. Is there anything that's coming up next that's officially cleared under NDA or whatever that you can talk about? Like, what's the next thing coming out?
Nothing I can really talk about at this point.
Okay.
Of course, everything's kind of in limbo right now, but we haven't been cleared to actually talk about anything. There's a couple of cool animated features coming out. One animated feature is going to be the predecessor to a video game, and they figured that they would release the animated feature to kind of bring everybody up to speed on what the storyline is. So when the video game came out, they could hit the ground running and know what the premise of the game and the storyline is. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, lots of exciting stuff, but we could just kind of get back to it. So we're just kind of waiting. Well, thank you, guys. Let me know when this posts, and I will tweet it out, as the kids say.
Of course.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Andrew, Ben, thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye, guys.
I gotta say, he's probably one of our favorite interviewees in the history of not just superhero stuff you should know, but SuperHouse in general.
We've been lucky, man. I mean, I guess you've just been finding all the good guys, but it's just like, all of our interviews, but of course, including this one, it's just really cool to talk to somebody that's been like a really iconic game series and like all kind, like Invader Zim and all that, and just like, I mean, for my money, again, anytime you say like your favorite, it's going to cause some ruckus online, but like for my money, personally speaking, this is like the top Riddler voice actor of all time.
Of course.
Currently, up until this point in history. It's cool to talk to this guy, and really nice dude, and to just kind of, you know, hear his stories on his experience in the industry. On his Wikipedia, it says he moved from the Midwest to Los Angeles in like '87 or something. So he's been here for quite a while. He's been in the game for a while. So it's just really cool to talk with somebody that's has quite that much experience, you know. So very, very cool, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and he definitely is. If anything, he is not only the quintessential Riddler, but he's also somebody who has done more than one version of the same character, which we talked about. Like I think only Troy Baker can have that distinction when it comes to a Batman character. Not with Riddler, of course, but with the Batman character himself. So that's really cool as well. Please follow us on social media with our new handles now. We are at Superhero Stuff Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you very much to our Instagram followers. This week's shoutouts go to Massimo Platti, art.gallery.of.monsieur.bb, and then Everything Batman 219. Over to Andrew.
Yeah, I'd like everybody to join the Shasta Army. That's our $1 tier on patreon.com/SuperHousePodcast. We're going to keep that name just for the time being. Still a soft launch on the name. So again, it's SuperHouse Podcast, all one word. So patreon.com/SuperHousePodcast. Please join the Shasta Army. That's our $1 tier there. I'd like to also thank Kookie Noms, Matt Herring, and Elijah B. I don't know why I say Kookie Noms like that. She's from Canada. But Kookie Noms. And
I'm sure she'll love it.
Yeah, I'd also like for everybody to leave us a review on iTunes and also in Spotify, if that's even possible. I have to look that up, but also Spotify has really opened their podcast game lately. So yeah, that'd be great. It increases our visibility quite a bit, so that would be great. And I'd also like for everybody to take out their phone, if it's not out already, and then open up your voice recorder app. I'm sure you already have it. And then what you do is open that up and then record something on there like, I love superhero stuff you should know, or superhero stuff you should know is awesome, or it really could be anything, as long as not incriminating or something. And more than likely, we will make that a bumper or put it somewhere on our podcast. And so it's a way for you to become a part of the show. And so from the voice recorder app, after you've made the voice recording, you press the share button and then share that to, all in one word, SuperHousePodcast at gmail.com, and send that to us, and then you will be on the show. More than likely, anyway. I'd say there's a 99% chance that you will. So, so yeah. And then I am Thunderwolf Drew on Twitter and Instagram. And please search for it's youtube.com/c/SuperHousePodcast. You can find us there, or just search for SuperHouse Podcast on YouTube, or Superhero Stuff You Should Know on YouTube as well, and you will find us there. We have a lot of content there as well, and I think that's it. This is Andrew signing off. Thanks, Wally.
Yep, this is Ben signing off. Thank you again, Wally Wingert.
This has been brought to you by the SuperHouse Podcast Network.
If you like what you heard and you want to support the show, or the SuperHouse Podcast Network, go to our Patreon at patreon.com/SuperHousePodcast.